Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Uh, yes,
Hello.
yes, sir. Should I start?
Okay, okay, we will start. Hello. Uh, am I audible?
Yes, you are
Debashis?
audible. Yes, yes,
Okay.
you are.
Uh, Good evening to everybody. On the screen, I can see our revered Professor Saroj Kumar Mahanti sir, other senior teachers, young teachers, scholars, students, and lovers of philosophy who are connected with the virtual intellectual platform. I welcome everybody. It's an honor and pleasure for me to offer you all a cordial welcome to the webinar on the philosophy of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan on the theme Contemporary Indian Philosophy, organized by Philosophy Family. Friends, the digital presence of many distinguished professors, scholars throughout the country is most encouraging on the part of the organizers. I and my convener, Sri Pramod Kumar Das, and other coordinator friends are really very grateful to all the participants for their connectivity for the cause of philosophical reflection. Friends, I would like to especially thank to the speakers. Those have been good enough to agree to address the webinar for the noble cause of UG and PG students of philosophy during such a hectic pandemic COVID-19. Friends, the pandemic corona has made us frightened. It has created economic crisis, health hazards, and many crises in life and profession. It has also caused stress and strain on each walk of life, but still it has developed the creativity among the philosophers, among the teachers of philosophy. Our teachers of philosophy have shown their commitment for the cause of students, and we have already organized, more than 5 series of webinars on different syllabus of UG and PG students. Today, we have to listen to a professor, Dr. Tapati Chakraborty, in the first session, and Professor Dr. Surya Maharana in the second session, the two eminent scholars of philosophy that is of our country on the philosophy of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. Prior to the talk of Dr. Tapati Chakraborty in the first session, it's my pleasure and honor to present a few words towards her academic and co-academic excellence. Dr. Tapati Chakraborty is now working as head of the Department Art and Culture, Binod Bihari Mehta, Coanchal University, Dhanbad. Being a person of virtue and simplicity, her perseverance and hard work are the means to achieve such position. Coupled with the impressive career, Dr. Chakraborty Madam is working in the University Department of Philosophy as an assistant professor of philosophy for more than 1 decade. She was introduced for the first time to us by our teacher, Professor Ganesh Prasad Das, when we were conducting ICPR sponsored International Yoga Day webinar in the month of July. My hearty gratitude to our teacher, Professor GP Das, for it. Dr. Chakraborty has served as a guest faculty, ISM Dhanbad, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. And she has been also invited as a speaker for various international and national seminars and conferences. Being invited as speaker for symposium at Indian Philosophical Congress, she has proved her excellence in the field of philosophical reflection. She also delivered endowment lecture at Indian Philosophical Congress. To her credits, she has written a couple of books and written for various journals, proceedings of national and international repute. Madam Chakraborty has received many awards at international conferences like World Thinkers and Writers Peace Meet 2015. She is a popular writer and creative performer in her state and has shown her commendable creativity on many cultural platforms. Madam Dr. Chakraborty is a member of University Academic Council, member of University Research Council, life member of Indian Philosophical Congress, life member ICSI, life member of Akhila Bharatiya Darshan Parishad, life member of Bharatiya Mahila Darsanika Parishad, and proved her creativity. Today, she will speak on the concept of man and reality in the philosophy of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, so far as the philosophy of contemporary Indian philosophy is concerned. I welcome Professor Dr. Tapati Chakraborty to this evening. Today, in the first session, Dr. Pragya Prakashini Das Kanungo is with me to moderate the interactive session. Dr. Pragya, at present, is working as a faculty member in Kamala Nehru Women's College of Bhubaneswar. Prior to that, she has a teaching experience of more than 20 years in DAB Public School, assistant professor in philosophy, Keys University, and Gope College. I also welcome Madam Pragya to this webinar. Sri Debasi Sarangi, our coordinator and assistant professor, is also with me today in this evening. He is hosting the session. He is recording and broadcasting the talks of the evening to YouTube. Now it's time to welcome Dr. Tapati Chakraborty to commence her presentation on the concept of man and reality. Pranam, madam. Madam, pranam. Welcome. Welcome, madam. Pranam.
Pranam, and thank you so much. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Yes.
Audible, madam.
Thank you. A very good evening to all. And Pranam. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to deliver this talk on the topic Man and Reality on the philosophy of Dr. Radhakrishnan. And a very special thanks to Dr. Kailash Maharana sir, because it was his phone call that I received inviting me to deliver this lecture for the webinar. Respected Dr. Surya Kanta Maharana from Allahabad University, who is again a speaker for this session. And I'm equally thankful to all respected professors associated with this webinar. Respected moderator, ma'am, Pragya Prakashini Das, ma'am. Respected convener, sir, Professor Pramod Kumar Das, Head Department of Philosophy, Nayagarh, Auto College, Nayagarh, Orissa. Respected co-convener, Dr. K. Om Narayan Rao, Assistant Professor to the Department of Philosophy, Narayanganj Government Women's College, Ashka, Orissa. Respected Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana sir, who is the coordinator, HOD Philosophy of Balugaon College, Orissa. Respected Dr. Patita Pavan Das, coordinator, who is the Assistant Professor, University Department of Philosophy, Reverend Shah University, Cuttack, Orissa. And respected Sri Debashis Sarangi, sir, who is coordinator, Head Department of Philosophy, NM College, Jamuli, Balasore. Greatly honored and privileged to be invited to speak for this philosophy family. And respected principals, respected professors, and most beloved students, I bow before all before I start to speak. And firstly, I start with my praise to my Guru. Akhanda Mandalakaran, Vyaptam Yana Characharan, Tatpadang Darshitangyana, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Agyana Timirandhasya, Jnana Jana Shalakaya, Chakshurunmita Ena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Now, man and reality and the philosophy of Dr. Radhakrishnan. Now, Dr. Radhakrishnan was one among the thinkers who has changed and revolutionized our thinking concerning a new way of life, inculcated by the real founders of the civilization. Born a Hindu, he was never a sectarian thinker, but man of universal mind, universal ideas and idols. And all through his life, he has spoken from a platform not only of Hinduism, but that of Christianity, both the Catholic and the Protestant branch, of the Islamic faith, Zoroastrianism, Sufism, and many other faiths. And well grounded in thought, both the West and the East, he could expound the Western cultural traditions to the East and Eastern cultural traditions, civilizations to the West. So, writing about Dr. Radhakrishnan, writes a thinker, C.E.M. Jordan, in his book, Counter Attacks from the East, that he seeks to build a bridge between the traditional wisdom of the East and new knowledge and energy of the West, so that each may be enriched by the qualities of each. So side by side, philosophizing in loneliness and silence, Dr. Radhakrishnan takes lively interest in all philosophical, religious, cultural, social, scientific, educational topics. And he never shuns to take upon the responsibility that is conferred and adores it with great dignity and honor. That is the reason when he was elevated to the highest chair of presidentship of the nation, newspapers and the magazines came out with editorial notes, writing that after centuries, Plato's idol icon, philosopher should be the king, has become real. Moreover, Dr. Radhakrishnan believed that education has the capacity that can transform a man from animal existence to human excellence. Because it aims at refinement, but he stressed on a naturalistic way of education rather than a materialistic education. I would like to quote him in this context as he said, "The world has become a madhouse where people execrate their racial superiority, religious pride, and thus becomes victims of moral, spiritual blindness. So education is required to revive our sensitivity." He adds to it, because true friend of education is an energized human being who is free from prejudices, presuppositions, and looks upon all as kin and kith. Moreover, he again quotes from Upanishad, the great controversy between Narada and Sanat Kumara, where you find, I would like to quote, his pupil says, I quote, "I know every type of Vidya, but why is it that I am not able to find deep solace in my mind? Why is it that I am not able to develop that comfort, that peace in my mind? He comes to truth. I quote, I am the knower of the depths. I have not developed that true knowledge of the self. That is why I am not unable to cross the ocean of suffering, sorrow. Unquote. So Dr. Radhakrishnan is of the view that true knowledge should deepen our insight, widen our horizon, and thus creating a meaningful life for man. And here you find a similarity with the Western philosopher Plato. When he discusses about the purpose of education, he said that it was not as to fill an empty vessel, but to turn the eye of the soul towards light. Unquote. So naturally, that's what Dr. Radhakrishnan says, that when this vision is directed towards light, that helps develop an inward restraint for the conscience of love that is distinct from the outward restraint of authority. As he said, I quote, education is man's perennial birth in the spirit. Its road to the inward kingdom adds to it. For outward glory is but the reflection of that inward light. So man is a complex being. He's a body-mind complex. Where we find the Western idealist of mind calling it ultimate reality. Dr. Radhakrishnan goes beyond, calls it the spirit. Says of the two, the spirit in man is the basic truth of man. So man's infinite nature consists in spirituality, of which we are intuitively aware, and which is a prelude to have awareness of that internal spiritual reality. He agrees with the Indian philosophical view that if spirit or spirituality is the supreme reality, then it follows that effort should be made for its realization. It's not merely a theoretical establishment of the reality of the spirit as the aim of Indian philosophical systems, but its realization or embodiment in life is equally emphasized as the purpose of human life. So here we find idealistic philosophical knowledge that leads to a religious realization. And we find that in Indian tradition, spirit or soul finds a prominent, a central status in thinking. Out of the two ends, from which this philosophical thinking commences, external and internal. Indian thinking starts with internal, introspective, and soul consciousness, and considers it the ultimate truth, which amounts to the spiritual or the idealistic view of human thought. And this changing, perishable, mortal body is considered not simply carrying any importance, but its biological propensities again are looked as hindrances to spiritual life. Dr. Radhakrishnan does not agree with such spiritual leaders or such thinkers, philosophical thinkers, that empirical aspect of man is illusory and it must be annihilated with its instincts. but rather he maintains that physical constitutes an aspect of the soul. Witnesses are his words. I would like to share with you, as he said, I quote, "The realm of the spirit is not cut off from realm of life. To divide a man into outer desire, the quality is to violate the interior. And the two orders of reality, the transcendent and the empirical, are closely related." So Dr. Radhakrishnan considers this empirical aspect of man as a stage, a milestone, an aid to raise and to realize the infinite nature. He therefore agrees with the perfectionist that the biological nature of man, instead of suppressing, must be perfected by discipline. So this spirituality within man is the infinite spirit in man, infinite nature of man, the true nature of man, which is akin to the universal spirit. As he said, I quote his words, "There is a self of man at the very center of his being, something deeper than the intellect, which is akin to the supreme." Now, why is man said to be the highest being in the scale of evolution? We find Dr. Radhakrishnan says, it is because of his consciousness, or that form of consciousness which is called self-consciousness, or self-knowledge, that confers on him the highest or the greatest among other beings and makes him the crown of creation, makes man the crown of creation. Moreover, he says that this self-conscious or the reflective nature of man is due to his spiritual nature. Here I would like to quote Dr. Radhakrishnan. As he said, I quote, "The yoga helps us to reach the higher level of consciousness through transformation of the psychic organism, which enables us to get beyond the limits set to ordinary human experience." He adds to it, "It is necessary corrective for the present mentality, overburdened with external things, material, greed, and sensual desire." Unquote. So don't you agree that the present age has become materialistic? People are running after acquiring object that is supposed to give only pleasurable life and never a happy life. And in this rat race of acquiring economic prosperity, we are forgetting what? Ethical values, religious values, social values, cultural values. And this distinction is seen obliterating in our social life. Now, sense of ethical values requires respect and restoration of the distinctions between what is right, what is wrong, what is duty, what is obligation, what is justice, what is injustice. And this present state of social living seems to be oblivious of these values. But you know, finally cultivating these values leads to the cultivation of a finer quality in man. What is that? That is spirituality in man. Dr. Radhakrishnan's whole thinking was centered around this elevation and development of that inherent spirituality in man. Moreover, he says we find that yoga for Dr. Radhakrishnan is a discipline by which we silence the karma of the senses and awaken the spiritual in us. So here I am reminded of Swami Vivekananda's book, Raj Yoga, where he has compared a human mind with that of a monkey. Now, illustrates, once there was a monkey, and someone made it drink a lot of wine. And restless as they are, became more restless. Then a scorpion stung it. That made the poor creature run all around. And finally, a ghost entered into its head. And now, this poor creature was all the more restless than even before. Same is the case with human mind. With vine of desires, scorpion of jealousy, and host of ego and pride. Unquote. Now, until and unless mind is bereft of these evils and is purified, how do you think that it can meditate properly? No. Before performing yoga, you need that, the calmer of the senses. As Dr. Radhakrishnan says, yoga is a discipline by which we silence the karma of the senses and awaken the spiritual in us. So is that possible? Moreover, Dr. Radhakrishnan said, I would like to quote, by following the principles of yoga, such as heightening the power of concentration, arresting the vagaries of mind, fixing one's attention to the deepest source of strength, one can master one's soul. As an athlete, we find mastery. So Dr. Radhakrishnan said that this world, I quote his words, this world must be governed with wisdom. And this emphasis is on making one's life a spiritual offering for healing the fellow feelings suffering. And so he says that education must always result in wisdom. And it must shed light to illumine the dark spots in our mind and intellect. So what do you think is the ultimate goal of education? To make man perfect in all respects. Perfectly healthy. Perfect in thinking, feeling and willing. Perfectly moral with a fully evolved consciousness. Moreover, Dr. Radhakrishnan said, I quote, that it is good to know that the ancient thinkers required us to realize the possibilities of the soul in solitude and silence, and transform the flashing and the fading moments of vision into the steady light, which can illumine the long years of life. That is yet to come. So determined as the empirical man is, with the external environment, with biological, psychological conditions, he ever tries to transcend it. What is this? A theological longing in the midst of comfort that we are provided with, or science has provided. Man always feels restless, bored by the mechanical way of social things. Else of this, Dr. Radhakrishnan feels that bewildered man looks for peace and rest in external things, forgetting his own manness, his real self, the true nature in man, the real self. And he termed it as dehumanization of man. Unnatural picture for man. Unfamiliar to man himself. Unsatisfied with the scientific explanation. Empirical man is ever aware of his limitations. The limits, that is limitations. And at the same time, he's also aware of his capacity to transcend or intuit beyond himself. So by exercise of free choice or act of freedom, one can raise himself to a great spiritual height, reality. And he can have a spiritual or mystical experience. And in this light of the expositions of this finite or infinite aspect of man, we can have an appreciation of Dr. Radhakrishnan quoted saying, as he said, I could. If a man becomes a demon, it's a defeat of man. If man becomes a man, it's a victory of man. But if a man becomes a Superman, it's a miracle. Unquote. So what
Dr. Radhakrishnan considers the empirical aspect of man has the capacity to intuit the divinity within him and raise himself to that spiritual reality, ultimate reality. But becoming a Superman is not easy, a rare thing. Therefore, he calls it a miracle. How this can be gained? By constant moral corrections, by following religious or yogic disciplines. Includeless people, but he classes the sages of the Upanishad, or Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekananda, Tagore, in the category of Superman, in whom the radiance of spirituality finds full expression. And this state of Superman is not a common thing, a rare thing, but says that this ideal can be attainable by anyone. And how? Speaking of the idol and the idol man, he says, I quote his words, there is only one idol for man. To make himself profoundly human, perfectly human, complete man, ideal man, divine man, is seeking for the highest or the innermost self, is seeking for God. That is self-discovery, self-knowledge, self-fulfillment is man's destiny. And moreover, adds to it, saying that, and for this, not necessary to flee from the world of work, what is required, I quote, to slay your ego sense. Eternal life is here and now, says Dr. Radhakrishnan. Nor does he favor complete obliteration of individuality or personality as singularism or non-dualism does. Because the idol or the liberated one, he feels that works for salvation of others. Liberation is freedom from impediments and realization of oneness with that absolute reality. But freedom is not incompatible with determinism. So the individual self is no doubt determined with his past karmas. Yes, it is determined with his past karmas, but is free to determine the future actions that what Dr. Radhakrishnan feels. Determined with the past karmas, but free to determine his future actions. So what does freedom mean? Freedom, therefore, is self-determination. As he has said, I would like to quote Dr. Radhakrishnan in this context. As he has said, I quote, the card in the game of life is given. We do not select them. They are all traced to a past karma. We can, as we please, lead what suit we will. And as we play, we gain or lose. And that's freedom. don't you think? Reluctance to accept anything that is spiritual. By this scientific temper of modern man. Exploitation, division of men by economics, political, dogmatic, religious rivalries are the ills of the world. And then this is something that results in lack of peace and therefore happiness in man's life and so with the world. Dr. Radhakrishnan, in his view, this is because we are holding a vitiated material view of life. And which has the capacity to touch only the intellect and never the internal spiritual reality that again has the capacity to bind man, spirit, nature, finite spirit, infinite spirit. And then what? That discerns this spiritual oneness in and this itself, I think, is a balanced view, which can eliminate the ills from this world and guarantee real happiness and peace in man's life and so in the world. So spiritual orientation is the greatest need of the hour. For it alone, not anything that stresses on relative values can usher in this era of peace, happiness, friendliness, and fellowship. So I end up with a prayer. Sarva bhavantu sukhina, sarvo santo nirama. May all be happy, may all be free from this. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks so much, Madam Professor Chakraborty, for your lucid and brilliant talk on the concept of man and reality in the philosophy of Radhakrishnan. In a novel way of presentation, you have reflected how man, according to Radhakrishnan, is not equal to a bundle of nerves and muscles alone. Man contains in him a spirit. The spirituality is the supreme reality that man has to discover within. Thus, you have spoken how man occupies a central position in the philosophical thinking of Dr. Radhakrishnan. Hearty gratitude, Madam, for your lucid talk. Now your presentation is open for interaction. May I request Madam Dr. Pragyan Prakashin Das to carry on the interactive session. Madam Pragyan.
Yes.
Over to Madam Pragyan.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. I think I'm audible to you all.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
audible.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to express my feeling of deep reverence for the senior members of the philosophy family And I convey my best wishes and blessings to the younger ones, including our dearest students. My gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Tapati Chakraborty, for sharing her thoughts, and it was mesmerizing, ma'am. I just wish that it would continue for us together, and I'd listen to you.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
uh, and now I take up the responsibility of conducting the Q&A session. Allow me to share the questions sent by the participants. Let me check whether there are questions or not. Well, I request the participants to send their questions now because I don't find any question in the chat box. I repeat, I request the participants to put the questions in the chat box. Because there are no questions in the chat box. I don't find any. Well, some senior members of our philosophy family must be there now. Kalyani Sarangi ma'am is there. Ma'am, if you want to ask any question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. If you want. Then K.M. Narayan Rao is there. Ratnakara Gajendra sir is also there. I request our esteemed, yes, sir.
Yes, yes, madam. Thank you for your nice talk. Actually, while during the lecture, you tried to make a distinction between being pleasurable, having a feeling of pleasure, and being happy. So, how do you take the how do you make a distinction between what that is pleasurable and a feeling of happiness? While you take two aspects of man being empirical in one sense and being spiritual on the other hand. Okay, and the second question is how does Radhakrishnan take yoga for the realization of the spirit within? Your comments, please, madam.
Thank you for the question. First of all, yes, I said, don't you think the present age has become materialistic and people are running after acquiring object that is supposed to give them a pleasurable life and never a happy life. Here what I meant is pleasurable by pleasure, that is something not detachment gives you happiness. Attachment, something gives you pleasure. So that detached things. And now with that, the second answer, what Dr. Radhakrishnan thinks of yoga, as he said, I would like to quote him again. That is, he said, I quote, by following the principles of yoga, such as heightening the power of concentration, arresting the vagaries of mind, fixing one's attention to the deepest source of strength, one can master one's soul as an athlete masters sport. Unquote. So what Dr. Radhakrishnan thinks of yoga is that it is a discipline by which we silence the clamor of the senses and awaken the spiritual in us. So that has the capacity. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, madam, for your answer, madam, for your response. Thank you very much.
Well, is there anybody who wants to ask any question to ma'am?
then offer gratitude to my
Okay.
madam.
Okay, well, ma'am, it was really enlightening and enriching, and you tried to capsule a vast topic in an 1 hour lecture. Well, it's my honor and pleasure to offer a vote of thanks to you, who is one of our esteemed members of our extended family, that is philosophy family, for your words of wisdom. And thank you, ma'am. We'll look forward to listening to you again and again. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thanks, madam, for your contribution to philosophy family, and thanks so much, Dr. Pragya, for conducting the interactive session and vote of thanks. Okay, madam, pranam. Now it's time to move to second session. Hello, hello, hello. Now it's
Hello.
time to second session of today's webinar, the philosophy of Radhakrishnan. In this evening,
Sir, your voice is breaking. Hello. 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 Kailash sir, hello. 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 Yes, your voice is breaking. No, you are not audible. Yeah.
Please wait 1 minute.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Now you are audible.
Okay. Okay, now in the second session, Dr. Surya Maharana is with us. You know, Dr. Surya Maharana is a brilliant young professor of philosophy and a man of the soil. He the pride of that of our state, and he the pride of philosophy family for his novel way of presentation, which we have already witnessed in different webinars conducted by philosophy family. It's my pride privilege to present his introduction prior to his talk on the concept of religion. Dr. Suryakanta Maharana has been working as an assistant professor of philosophy in the Department of Philosophy, University of Allahabad, Prayagraj, since 2010. Earlier, he has worked as an assistant professor of philosophy in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani, Rajasthan, for over 6 years. Besides teaching various courses of philosophy at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, he is actively involved in guiding doctoral students leading to PhD degree. As of August 2020, four doctoral students have been awarded PhD degree under his able guidance. 2 more students have submitted their PhD thesis for evaluation, while several others are still pursuing their PhD course. Dr. Maharana holds a PhD degree from Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, awarded to him in 2005. Dr. Maharana was awarded with the reputed Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Scholarship for pursuing a PhD degree. He was also awarded General Fellowship of the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi, for pursuing postdoctoral research. He obtained MPhil degree from University of Hyderabad in 2001. Dr. Maharana earned master's degree in philosophy with a gold medal from Ravenshaw University, Kotak in 1998. He also obtained a gold medal in the bachelor's degree from Brahmapura University in 1996. Dr. Maharana has published several research papers in reputed journals of philosophy published in India and abroad. You know, besides, he has presented many research papers in national and international events in India as well as abroad. He has also delivered a few invited lectures within the university as well as across the country. He has published an edited book co-authored by him titled Perspective on Indian Ethics. Recently, he has accomplished a UGC-sponsored research project titled Philosophy of Mind in Advaitha Vedanta. As an active member of the department, he has organized a few philosophical events such as the celebration of World Philosophy Day and Indian Philosophers Day. Further, Dr. Maharana has been actively involved in the organization of various seminars, workshops, and conferences in the department as a member of the organizing committee. And besides the academic activities, Dr. Maharana has executed certain administrative responsibilities of the university, like an officer on special duty of the university examination. He has also been an active member of the various academic committees of the universities. He is a life member of the Indian Philosophical Congress and All India Philosophy Association, Akhila Bharatiya Darshana Parishad. Apart from all, his areas of research interest include continental philosophy, especially phenomenology and existentialism, Vedanta, especially Advaita Vedanta of Shankara. His areas that we have already witnessed in previous webinar. His areas of interest in teaching include classical Indian philosophy, modern Western philosophy, logic, Western epistemology, phenomenology, and existentialism, philosophy of Shankar as a special paper. And he has also expertise in comparative religion and ethics and social philosophy. Then he has also many more recognition, and he has also gained many awards, many felicitations from different organizations that I don't want to explore. With this, I would like to invite and welcome Dr. Surya Maharana to present his talk on the concept of religion in the philosophy of Dr. Radhakrishnan. Welcome. Over to Dr. Surya Maharana. Hello. Over to Dr. Surya Maharana.
Hello. Very good evening.
Welcome.
Am I audible, please?
Audible, audible.
Okay. So, very good evening to all of you. At the outset, let me present my heartfelt gratitude to all the organizers of this philosophy family for again inviting me to share my ideas on Radhakrishnan's concept of religion. Secondly, I bow down before all the teachers of Odisha, all my teachers who have taught me, and all the teachers of Odisha who have brought grandiose to national and international repute. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me to share my views once again with you in this evening. Before I go to the topic that has been assigned to me by the organizers, let me say a few words Actually, when I was assigned this topic, Radhakrishnan's view on religion, I had to confess openly that neither I specializes in this field of Radhakrishnan, nor I have a good knowledge of Radhakrishnan's philosophy. So that way, I was slightly weakened. But at the very next moment, I was also excited to study once again, restudy Radhakrishnan's philosophy of religion. Simply because I find a wonderful relationship between myself and Professor S. Radhakrishnan. And the relation is like this. Radhakrishnan, Professor Radhakrishnan happens to be my great grand teacher. All of you would be astonished, surprised to know this fact. My teacher who taught me masters in Ravenshaw College, Dr. Dharani Ranjan Satpathy, he had his teacher, Professor S.K. Chattopadhyaya, Professor Shyama Kumar Chattopadhyaya, who happened to be a wonderful professor, a reputed, a renowned professor across the world, Professor Shyama Kumar Chattopadhyaya. So Professor Shyama Kumar Chattopadhyaya happens to be my grand teacher. And Professor Shyama Kumar Chattopadhyaya has been a direct student of Professor S. Radhakrishnan. So in this way, Professor Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan happens to be my great grand teacher. So that way, I was also excited to improve upon my reading of contemporary Indian philosophy during my graduation days. So whatever little bit knowledge I have gained about Radhakrishnan's concept of religion, though I do not specialize in this field, I would be very happy to share my views with all the beloved students. So once again, I welcome all of you to this Philosophy Families webinar, and especially the beloved students to whom I am going to dedicate this lecture. And once again, I congratulate all the organizers of this philosophy family who has put in hard efforts just for the benefit of the students of Odisha during this crisis of COVID-19 lockdown. With these few words, let me move to my assigned topic. As I told you, the topic that has been given to me is Radhakrishnan's view on religion. Now, for this, I have designed this lecture in the following way. First, I'll start with a brief introduction. Then, in the part one of my lecture, I'll talk about definition of religion, how religion has been defined in general. Then I'll talk about how Professor Radhakrishnan has defined religion. With this, I'll move to the part two of my lecture. In that lecture, I'll try to elaborate upon the nature of religion, the nature of religious experience, the very structure of religion, and the nature of religious life. In the part three of my lecture, I'll discuss about the nature of religious conflict and conflict resolution, and finally, unity in religions. And in the fourth part, the last part of my lecture, I'll talk about path leading to the religious goal or the ultimate end of human life. After this, I will draw my observations about the nature of religion according to Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's thinking. This would be my conclusion. With this framework, let me proceed to the first part of my lecture, that is introduction. Before we enter into Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's view on religion, we have to ask a basic question. Why should we study religion at all? What is the need of thinking about religion? And finally, what religion is about? In one sentence, let me define religion in this way. Whoever is a believer is a follower of religion. This is the very Western idea of religion. The Western way of thinking is this. When you move around the Western countries and in religious organizations and religious seminars or the interactions on the topic of religion, they often ask the question, are you a believer? So when I, at the first sight, prima facie, when I pressed this question for the first time, I said, what do you mean by believer? Then they looked at me in strange eyes. Then my friend told me that, look, they are asking whether you believe in God. That is, are you a man of religion? Do you follow in religion or not? To all these questions, they reply, they ask very briefly, are you a believer? That is, do you believe? Do you believe that there is a God? Do you have a personal God? This is the Western way of thinking. Now the question is, in India, very often we find that there are astikas as well as nastikas, believers and non-believers in the entire classically Indian philosophical framework. If you are a believer in the Western sense, that is, if you believe in the existence of God, then religion would be defined here as the goal of human life. Religion is a way, is a path towards God realization. If you are not a believer, then religion would mean for you that religion is the path that makes you reach the ultimate goal of human life, that is self-realization. Therefore, in India, according to classical Indian philosophical way of thinking, either you are a believer in a self or you are a believer in God. You cannot be neither. If you are neither, then you are looked at in different eyes, just like Charvakas. So the goal of human life is self-realization and God realization. The question is, why? Why do we realize the self? What is the urgency of it? Why should we realize God? What is the need of it? What is the urgency? The answer is very clear. The answer is that human life is very precious. It is precious, but then there is a risk inbuilt within it. What is the risk? The risk is that death is moving around all of us every moment. It is knocking our door at every moment. To begin with, a quotation from Viveka Chudamani of Adi Shankaracharya. Jantu nam Narajanma Durlhavataha. Jantunam Narajanma Durlhavataha. Amongst all animal lives, Jantunam Narajanma, the life of a human being, Durlhavataha, indeed rare. Among all animals, human life is very rare. Again, Shankaracharya goes on. Pustvam tat viprata. Pustvam, very difficult it is. Tat viprata. To attain full manhood. That is to attain Godhead, to attain self-realization. Full manhood means, or viprata means here, that it is very difficult to follow the path of God realization or self-realization, technically called as viprata. And mrityu shanka, there is always mrityu shanka with us. That's why Shankaracharya again repeats it and advises all of us to repeat it again and again, time and again in our daily routine, at every moment in our life, so that we are reminded of the fact that we have this mrityu shanka, fear of death. Everyone in this universe, irrespective of caste, creed, and religion, fears death. Because everyone believes that I have to die one day. And when you listen to a death fact, that somebody is dead, a normal fear comes from within, that I am also going to die. And Shankaracharya says, repeats in one of his writings, Name mrityu shanka. Name mrityu shanka. Name jati veda. Pita naiva me naiva. Mata na janma. Bandhur na mitram. Gurur naiva shishya. Chidananda rupa. Shiva kevaloham. Chidananda rupa Shiva kevaloham. I am not mrityu shanka. That has to be reminded of. And that very discipline which reminds us of this fact that I am not mrityu shanka is religion. And Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, you will be amazed to know, a serious follower of Adi Shankaracharya and is a hardcore Advaitin. Later on, we will see in his definitions of religion, in his pronouncements about religion, he follows exactly the Advaitin path. So therefore, it is high time that we must realize this fact, that at any moment of time, our breathing may be stopped and we will be bereft from this precious human life, which has the opportunity to attain Godhead, to go back to our original nature, which brings us peace, happiness, prosperity, and everything, attaining which all desires are fulfilled. We are supposed to become apta kama. Apta kamasya ka spriya. Gaudapada, Acharya Gaudapada. Apta kama, one who has fulfilled all his desires, what kind of spriya he can have or she can have? This state we are supposed to attain in this human life. For this sake we have taken birth. Again, the Vedic literature says, of which Professor Radhakrishnan is a systematic follower, that the human birth has been attained at least after 84 lakhs of births. It is supposed by the Indian thinkers that there are at least 84 lakhs of species in the entire universe. In water, in air, on earth, 84 species. And when one has taken a human birth, it is supposed to move around all these 84 lakhs of births and then finally take a human birth. So therefore, it is very rare. And once we miss this opportunity, rather golden opportunity of this human life, in the next life, we don't know whether we'll be getting this human life. So therefore, we shouldn't miss even a moment of life. This is what Radhakrishnan also says. Therefore, moving towards or pursuing religion is an emergency. All these years, all the God realized and self realized ones in India, since time immemorial, had advised time and again that Mrityu Shanka is good for a sadhaka, a serious follower of religion. He has to think that at any moment I can die, therefore I should be hurried. I should hurry up in moving towards, in approaching Godhead or approaching my own inner self. I am reminded of one beautiful song sang by an Odia poet. केजाणी ए बेड़ो आउ मिलिबो कि नहीं रे आसोरे आसोरे सरोबे हरि सेवा पाई रे और गुरु सेवा पाई रे. I don't know. We don't know whether we'll get this time or not, whether this very moment or not. So therefore, at this very moment, let us all together rush towards Hari Seva. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The God, Supreme Brahman. Let us serve Him so that we'll attain Him, which is the goal of all religion. That is why understanding and studying religion is a must and is an emergency as far as my understanding goes. That's where the necessity of following a religion. Radhakrishnan is also follows at par this view. Now, with this basic background, let me move on to the next portion of my lecture, that is defining religion or definition of religion. When we move towards various literature, we find that the word religion is derived from different roots. Let me deal with 2 or 3 of them. Cicero, we know, is a famous philosopher, classical philosopher. Religion is derived, according to Cicero, from the root word religare. Religare, R-E-L-E-G-E-R-E, meaning to care for or to treat carefully. To care for whom? To care for God. To treat carefully whom? God. God is something, a living principle who has to be cared for. Why? Because He is caring for us at every moment of time, without which nobody can exist. To treat carefully, we have to treat Him, we have to serve Him carefully, so that once satisfied with us, He would embrace us, which is the goal of life. This is the way religion, the word religion, has been derived. Second root could be, which has been given by Lactantius. Lectanius, again, is a famous personality in the field of religion. He says the word religion is derived from religare, 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 meaning to bind with God. That religion is that which binds us with God. That's the meaning. A third and the last etymology could be, which is being developed by Saint Augustine, is a very again famous personality in the medieval period. According to him, religion, the word religion is derived from the root word religio, Relegio, meaning recovering from God. We are supposed to recover from God, which is our birthright. What is that we are supposed to recover from God? It may be liberation, it could be moksha, it could be emancipation, it could be freedom from suffering. It could be Satchidananda. All these we are supposed to recover from God. And that which enables us to get it recovered from God is called religion. This is the way how the Western philosophers have tried to define religion. Some more competent figures also we can find it here. William James fantastically defines religion. Man's faith in a power beyond himself, whereby he seeks to satisfy emotional needs and gains stability of life, and which he expresses in acts of worship and service. William James has defined religion like that. Sigmund Freud, all of us know him, a famous psychologist. Religion is the belief in God, which provides security from natural hurdles and fellow man. Along with Sigmund Freud, there is another psychologist, C.G. Jung. According to him, religion gives us peace and happiness. That's why one should pursue religion. Stoics, Epicureans, and Spinoza also have attempted to define religion like this. Religion is the ripened fruit of the tree of religion, the tree of wisdom. Religion is the ripened fruit of the tree of wisdom. N.F.S. Ferre defines religion as, religion is the search for the power to overcome the evil side of life. It is an understanding in depth what life means. These are the various definitions and root from where this word, this English term religion, English word religion has come forth. With this, let us move to the Indian idea of religion very briefly. As far as the classical Indian thinking is concerned, religion may be understood as dharma. Dharma has been again derived here etymologically from the root word dhri. Dhri. Dharayati iti dharma. That which holds everything together is dharma. And this is what Radhakrishnan is following, not the Western ideas. Now let us move on to what is Radhakrishnan's take on this word religion. Radhakrishnan says that actual meaning of religion is dharma. And what is dharma? I quote Radhakrishnan. Under the concept of dharma, the Hindu brings the forms and activities which shape and sustain human life. Very beautiful. That which shapes and sustains human life is dharma. Secondly, I quote him again in another place. We may define dharma as the whole duty of man in relation to the fourfold purpose of life, namely dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, by members of the four groups, Chaturvarna, and the four stages, Chaturashrama. So here we have found that Radhakrishnan has attempted to define religion firstly as that which shapes our life and sustains our life. These days we talk about sustainable development. So there is a sustainable development with respect to man first, and then a sustainable development of nature as well. So that which sustains our life is the top priority. Environment will come later. The environment exists for us, not vice versa. That is also important, equally important, without which we cannot sustain ourselves. But then, in a logical order, in a systematic way, in a philosophical order, we are the first. For the sake of us, everything exists. If we are not there, everything is irrelevant. Therefore, Radhakrishnan says that it is duty. Dharma is understood as duty further. Everyone has a duty in this world. And we have an eternal duty with us, which every moment we have been doing. What is the duty? To be occupied with our own eternal soul or self, and to see which is the goal of human life. That is our prime duty. To move towards the soul, the self, the Atma, the Brahman. Radhakrishnan very fascinatingly follows the statement of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, wherein this says the hero of this Upanishad, Yajnavalkya, shares his ideas, philosophical ideas with his beloved wife, Maitreyi. Atma va aredrastabhyah, shrotabhyah, mantabhyah, nididhyasitabhyah. My dear wife, Maitreyi, the goal of human life is to Atma va aredrastabhyah. The self has to be seen. Shrotabhyah, it has to be heard from a master who has seen it. A guru who has seen it, has realized it. Mantabhyah, after hearing it has to be reflected upon. Whatever I have heard, I have to reflect upon it. And finally, nididhyasitabhyah, I have to contemplate on it so that I am supposed to get merged with it. That is what is religion according to Radhakrishnan's way of thinking. That is the foremost duty of all living beings, especially humans. This is how religion has been defined, dealt with. There are so many things. Because of constraint of time, I cannot go into that. Let me move on to the next part, the second part of my lecture, the nature of religion and religious experience, and the structure of religion and the nature of religious life. All these four things I'll speak on very briefly, although. Nature of religion. What is the nature of religion according to Radhakrishnan's? Religion is the path or self is a path of self-realization and God-realization. All sectarian religions urge for God realization in the sense of seeing the presence of God. Radhakrishnan says that the goal of every religion in this world is to feel or to see the presence of God. For seeing or experiencing the presence of God, one needs to have a religious experience. How do we see God or feel God? By an experience. And that experience is called religious experience. Now, how religious experience has been defined? Religious experience is experience that enables spiritual vision or realization, that discovers eternal truths, discovery of eternal truths, which is a spiritual vision or spiritual realization. It is not something material, it is something subjective. Why it is spiritual? What is spirituality? Spirituality has to do with spirit. What is a spirit? Spirit is a soul, is a self, Atma. And the science which deals with the emphasis of spirit or self or Atma is spirituality. Emphasizing the spirit over matter is called spirituality. Therefore, spirituality or spiritual experience is a subtle experience, very, very subtle. Therefore, it is not material. It cannot be publicized. It is not demonstrative. You cannot demonstrate it to others. It has to be realized within. That is what has been proved by the ancient sages, the prophets, and the seers of religion since time immemorial on this earth. Such an experience presupposes what is called as technically faith in the reality of experience itself. Faith in the ultimate reality is the first premise of religious experience. Unless you have faith, you cannot go ahead. Of course, it is not blind faith. Now, students, so many students, they ask the questions that why should we have faith? Believe. Every faith or belief is a blind faith or a blind belief. We shouldn't believe blindly on anything because we are rational beings. Always we should use our reason, the most important gifted instrument. We are rational animals. Of course, we are animals, no doubt. But among animals, we are the best. Jantunam narajanma durlabataha. But then, faith is the presupposition of our life. Unless we have faith, we cannot do anything at all in our life. This actually we are forgetting. When you travel, for instance, we have faith in the driver. When we board an aeroplane, we have faith in the pilot. When we drive our own car or bicycle or motorcycle, we have faith on others that I won't face an accident. We have faith that today also I'll live. Every moment of our life, every activity of our life begins with faith. This faith is not blind because it's a practical, highly pragmatic. But when the question comes into the field of religion, we raise our eyebrows. You say, faith? No, 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 no. Why? Therefore, Radhakrishnan says, don't worry. This faith will be converted into an unfaith reality, material reality, which you can see by your own eyes. Faith is therefore a starting point, not the final. There are certain experiences which gives us pure aesthetic joy, an experience of the beyond. There are experiences in our life. God realization is the last one, but then we have this experience in our life. For example, the works of a philosopher, scientist, or even an artist, says Radhakrishnan, produce this aesthetic joy. When one does something with honesty, sincerity, and commitment, one gets absorbed in it. One enjoys pure aesthetic joy, the feeling or the existence of God in it. The search for truth, goodness, and beauty is the search for God. A philosopher searches for what? Truth. Discovery of reality or truth is the goal of a philosopher. Scientist, more or less the same. The artist search for beauty. And all these search together, they reach us to God. Why? Because God is called as Satyam Shivam Sundaram. I am reminded of statements of Bible wherein it is said that if you want to know God, realize God, study His creation, appreciate His creation, praise His creation. That is what the philosophers and scientists and the artists are doing basically. And indirectly, they are pursuing God. Because God is nowhere, it is in the creation. We can understand Him, we can see Him through His creations, through His works. In such experience, one forgets all miseries of life, at least for the time being, and proves that only through this kind of experiences, mukti or liberation can be had, can be attained. This is what Radhakrishnan feels. Our honest, sincere works, serious work, gets ourselves absorbed in our work. So there establishes a kind of identity between ourselves and our work. And we used to derive tremendous pleasure from this kind of an identity or absorption. This is just a glance of religious experience, says Professor Radhakrishnan. Thus, religious experience is a normal experience, not extraordinary or supernatural. This is a normal way we find it, the pleasure. We derive the intellectual pleasure normally. In this experience, one is conscious of an object. There is duality between the subject and the object. However, the subject-object duality is transcended later when we approach God, when we approach nearer to God. Consciousness and its object gets merged, giving rise to a single consciousness, where consciousness and existence become equivalent. Sat and Chit, they get united. Consciousness is Chit, and the object with which we get observed is Sat, existence. The very source of all such experience is the inner self, called as consciousness or Atma or Brahman, and hence it is personal. It is a personal experience. Religious experience gives rise to religious life, a life lived in one's internal world. The subjectivity. We are all subjects and we lead a life within. Such life detaches everything that is worldly, as it creates dissatisfaction to it. Thus, it aims only for the perfect or full satisfaction. We are never satisfied. Nobody is satisfied in this world. But then we seek fullest satisfaction, complete satisfaction. And where is it? It is in God. The Bhagavata literature, again slightly deviating from this view, the Bhagavata literature tells us that is sukha or pleasure. The real sukha or the real pleasure is found only at one place, that is in Hari. In God only we find ultimate pleasure, real sukha. And besides Hari or Vishnu or Lord or God or Self or Brahman, nowhere else we can find or trace pleasure. Why? Merely because this God or the Self or Brahman or Allah or Christ is defined as the nature of Sukha. He or she is Sukha Swarupa. That's why if we want to attain real pleasure, ultimate pleasure, qualitative pleasure, we have to approach the Supreme Lord. Again, in the philosophical community also we find this. With reference to Socrates, we find a very famous statement. It is better to be a satisfied pig than a dissatisfied Socrates. Every philosopher, every scientist, or every artist is never satisfied with its work. Because you cannot find satisfaction anywhere. So therefore, the ultimate goal is to reach the ultimate pleasure or the sukha. However, it is not a mere feeling or mere knowing of the reality. It is a vision of the reality. The universal self or God by which individual self satisfies its intellectual, moral and aesthetic needs, which in turn produces peace or shanti. The word shanti has been repeatedly used by Professor Radhakrishnan. Within the world of pain, defeat, loss and frustration. It is only by approaching the Supreme Self that we attain shanti, peace of mind, in the midst of all kinds of misery, all kinds of frustration, all kinds of pain, defeat, loss, everything which is defined as this world. The world has been defined like this. Dukkhalayam. Slightly again I am deviating. Bhagavad Gita says, Dukkhalayam asashvatam. The world has been defined as Dukkhalayam, the abode or the house of Dukkha. We are staying in the house of Dukkha, but we are expecting Sukha. What a self-contradiction. Therefore, if we want to attain Sukha, we have to go to Sukhalaya. And where is Sukhalaya? The abode of God. And the way which leads us to the Sukhalaya is religion, dharma. The experience of peace or shanti and joy also produces an inner freedom. Freedom from worldly affairs of which it has a slave earlier. Before religious life or before religious experience, we were the slaves of this world. A man is supposed to be a slave, working under the dictation of the world. But then when we attain this, when we realize this, we are freed from that. we get ourselves detached from that and we try to act according to our priority. The world is no more dictating us. Therefore, we get an inner strength. We inner strength to fight against the adversity of the world, to fight against our own nature, our own senses, which creates an hurdle for us towards the path of self-realization. This experience is realized as the most certain or self-evident. This is self-evident. It's neither any kind of imagination or a dream or any kind of any other illusion. Jacques Derrida, a wonderful phenomenologist thinker of the West, defines this kind of an experience as sorry for the interruption. Jacques Derrida coined the term deconstruction, defines subjective experience as self-evident nature of the subjective experience. We know what we are. We know whether we exist or not. No proof is required for this. Though it is a momentary, it creates a mark in the whole of life. This religious experience is a momentary experience at the initial level. The goal is, the aim of life is to make it permanent. It is momentary, but it leaves a mark on our life and makes us cautious, gives us strength to face the hurdles of life, challenges of life, and move towards, in a gradual development, gradual progress towards the higher attainment, the attainment of Godhead. Such an experience can never be forgotten at all. It's powerful. That's why it cannot be forgotten. And we usually share it with our near and dear ones. Such an experience is beyond demonstration, although it is self-established, self-evidenced, and self-luminous. These three words are being used fantastically by Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. These three terms are typically Advaitic terms used by Adi Shankaracharya and his followers. Professor Radhakrishnan is directly borrowing these concepts from Advaita tradition. It is self-established. Self-established in the sense self-proved, swayam siddha. No other proof is required to prove its existence. It is self-luminous, swayam prakasha. Technically, it is called so. It illuminates itself from within. Just like the sun illuminates itself from within, it is just like that. But then it's not like the sun. It is much more above the sun. In Kathopanishad, you find that even the sun is being regulated by which is called as the self. By the fear of the self, the sun and the moon, they rush towards their daily routine duties. Kathopanishad. To whom the sun and the moon, the fear is the self. But then it is like the sun, the effulgence of the sun. Religious experience thus reaches certainty through this logical, through this kind of an experience. It is unlike a logical deduction which we find in the Western tradition. René Descartes, for instance, derives the existence of the self through a logical deduction, mathematical or geometrical deduction. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I exist. Ergo dubito, ergo cogito, ergo sum. This is a logical deduction. I think, this is the premise, therefore I exist in the conclusion. This is not the way in which we derive this religious experience, says Radhakrishnan. Why? Because this is self-luminous, self-evidenced, or self-established. Every experience, every activity of our life presupposes it. This is the epistemological, metaphysical, moral, aesthetic, every foundation. It's a moral foundation, epistemological, metaphysical, everything. It's a presupposition. It precedes everything. Hence, it's not a logical deduction. So an exact and precise description and explanation of the indescribable and inexplainable experience is not possible. Again, here, Radhakrishnan uses the anirvachaniya concept of Advaitha. He says, this experience, whether it is a rope or a snake, is inexplainable, indescribable. This is because, why? This is because the self is unified with the experience, as a consequence of which the subject-object dichotomy gets transformed. Any attempt to describe it dilutes its nature. This experience is intuitive, which is silent and therefore beyond the reach of speech and mind. The experience is symbolic, and in order to give an idea of such symbolism, the help of the tradition is sought. This experience is indescribable in words. Language has its own limitation. Therefore, we are supposed to be completely mum before anyone in order to attempt to describe it. But then, should we keep mum altogether? Can we not communicate it? We can communicate it, but then that is not the true communication. Only an haphazard or incomplete communication we can make, citing the traditions, the religious traditions in which we are born and brought up. What is the structure of religion? As we have seen, religious life is based on religious experience, which in turn decides the very nature of religion. Who will decide the nature of religion? Our religious life and our religious experience. If I experience Allah is the ultimate reality, that will decide my nature of religion. If I find Jesus to be the ultimate reality, Baha'i is the ultimate reality, Brahman is the ultimate reality, Shakti is the ultimate reality, that will decide the course of my religion. The question then is, what constitutes religion? Radhakrishnan raises this question and he replies it in this way. Traditionally speaking, religion is understood as a feeling. We have to feel it. Emotion, sentiment, a cult, ritual, belief, or faith. Besides all, it is based on certain perception and morality. The synthesis of all these constitute religion. So this is what is altogether this basic structure of religion. Now let me move on to conflict in religions and conflict resolution in religion, and finally the unity in religions. Conflict in religion arises when any one of the aforementioned elements are emphasized. If I emphasize my feelings, or if I emphasize my emotions or sentiments or my cult or my ritual or my belief or faith, then religious conflict will arise. If I emphasize, then my counterpart will also emphasize upon some of its aspects. Therefore, conflict will arise. Ignoring the other as the as the essence of religion is the cause of the conflict of religion, conflict in religions. However, these conflicts, given these conflicts, it creates a misunderstanding of each other's religion. But then, this conflict do not touch the core or essence of religion. At the heart of every religion dwells the same single ultimate reality. It may have different names, different forms, which are only symbolic representation of the one ultimate divinity standing at the backdrop of this multifarious universe. There is no doubt that we are born and brought up in a particular religious tradition. This has given us a specific symbol of the reality which has been bestowed to us by the tradition. As a result, we are tempted to strongly believe that ours is the only ultimate reality and any other form of reality must not exist. Such belief gives rise to conflict merely because we do not realize that the one reality pervades all religions. We do not realize this. Therefore, the goal of all honest and sincere and committed religious seekers is to make a harmony amongst all religions. That is why Radhakrishnan is worried about. He emphasizes time and again about establishing the unity in religions. Despite all diversity of the forms of the ultimate reality, the core or essence of all religions remain the same, what may be termed as the unity of religions. The unity may be understood as follows. There is an underlying thread which runs through all religions, and the thread is the divine dwelling within us, is the divine dwelling in all. And this thread ultimately is held by a higher divinity, which is present at the backdrop of all religions. Such higher divinity, called variously as God, Brahman, Allah, etc., has to be realized through a proper religious life, which begins with a firm belief in the certain existence of such reality. It is not a mere belief, but a visioned by or visualized experience by the seers or the prophets, and has been continuously visioned by numerous of its followers. Now, why Massey? All of us know, beautifully quotes S. Radhakrishnan's concept of the harmony of religions in this way. I quote, why Massey, page 353. The different religious traditions clothe the one reality in various images, and their visions could embrace and fertilize each other so as to give mankind a many-sided perfection, the spiritual radiance of Hinduism, the faithful obedience of Judaism, the life of beauty of Greek paganism, the noble compassion of Buddhism, the vision of divine love of Christianity, and the spirit of resignation to the sovereign Lord of Islam. I unquote. So Radhakrishnan seriously trying to get a unity of religion. Now, moving on to my last part of the lecture is path leading to religious goal. What is the path by which we have to lead our life and reach the ultimate goal? The goal of religion is a life to have unity or vision of the ultimate reality, may be termed as emancipation, which is possible only through a religious experience. The path to emancipation has two levels. Level 1 may be called as preliminary or qualifying level, wherein mental, intellectual, emotional, and ethical disciplines are to be followed, which consist of doctrine, devotion, and worship. Here, mind and body need to be qualified for the next level. And what is the next level? Level 2 is attainment. Attainment, wherein complete detachment from all bondage is sought, resulting in a pure state of the inner divinity, which is kept ready through the rigorous practice of level 1 to receive the light of the higher divinity. This is possible through meditation and contemplation on the higher reality. Here again, Radhakrishnan is borrowing ideas from the Advaitha tradition. What is that? Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, Samadamadi Sadhana Sampat, Ihamutradi Bhoga Viragaha Mumukshatam. These are the disciplines which we are supposed to cultivate in level 1 in order to prepare ourselves for the attainment. And then he stresses on meditation and contemplation, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Besides all this, he also emphasizes on yoga. Technically, he uses this word yoga, dhyana, prayers, idol worship, rituals, rites, ceremonies are also suggested for practice which transforms the human nature. The transformed nature remains united with the divine nature, and the divine nature in turn remains united with the higher divine nature. This is the state of ultimate religious experience, yielding liberation. Dwelling in such a state, the individual displays a disinterest in everything and being. It is not affected by anything. With this attitude, it works for others' well-being. This is what Radhakrishnan has said about the nature of the path leading towards religious goal and the nature of the religious goal. As we come across Professor Radhakrishnan's philosophy, we find that according to him, the goal of human life is not mukti, mukti of the individual. He says the goal of individual is sarva mukti. Here slightly, he is trying to deviate from Shankara Vedanta. According to Shankara Vedanta, Jivan Mukti is the goal of life. Liberation while living here in this world is the goal of life. Radhakrishnan is also a very good fan of Buddhism. Wonderful text is written on Dhammapada, all of us know. Following the Buddhistic ideals, he says that if I myself attained liberation, I become selfish. As a pure and pious soul, as the nature of Satyam, Shivam, and Sundaram, a self must not be satisfied with his own state of Sachidananda, own state of bliss or Shanti. As a Jivan Mukta, I should also work for the Jivan Mukta of all. This is what Lord Buddha says. We all of us know that Lord Buddha is also called as Karuna Avatara, incarnation of compassion, merely because he works for the liberation of all, Sarva Mukti. Radhakrishnan would like to follow the path of the Buddha. And he says that even after liberation, the Mukta, the Jivan Mukta, works rigorously and hardly for the society, just for the sake of the pleasure and happiness and the attainment of Mukti of all beings. And if required, even after Bidya Mukti, he prefers to take another birth. He invites sufferings to himself or herself. And he prefers to suffer, invite pain just for the sake of others. And the goal is working for the emancipation, liberation of all miserable beings. The Jivan Mukta can life after life, dedicated and committed just for the sake of others. This is what is the goal of life. Therefore, Radhakrishnan is not satisfied with Jivan Mukti. So, what we have seen in the conclusion, I would like to submit that Radhakrishnan, of course, is a great fan of classical Indian philosophy, including Buddhism, a staunch follower of Advaitha philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya and his followers. But then, when required, he slightly deviates from the classical Indian tradition and tries to give modernity to the classical ones. So this kind of interpretation of religion is required time and again for the benefit of all the seekers of philosophy and seekers of religion. With this, my slightest observation, with my little understanding, whatever I had from my rereading of contemporary Indian philosophy through these few days, I beg excuses from all of you. I seek pardon from all of you. I seek apologies from all of you for committing any errors in my expression, errors in my discussion. And I hope that all you, the good souls, will certainly excuse me for that, pardon me for that, forgive me for that. And I'll be enlightened by all your questions so that I can improve upon all these things. Once again, at last but not the least, my sincere thanks to all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my little understanding about Radhakrishnan's idea of religion. And I'm sure definitely I would have bored many people because the strength that I see here is not encouraging. Certainly, I have taken a lot of time from you, and from the core of my heart, I thank all the listeners and all the participants. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Hello, Dr. Surya. Hello.
Sir.
Hello,
Sir,
Dr.
sir.
Surya.
Sir.
Actually, really, namaskar. Really, I find no words to appreciate your brilliant way of understanding Radhakrishnan philosophy. It is like mantra mugdha.
No.
Really,
Sir.
really,
So this is your exaggeration. I do not, I do not deserve this.
Really, you are the pride of our soil. The way you have reflected upon the religion in Western and Eastern thought, Radhakrishnan view on the religion, religious experience, God realization, goal and path of religion, goal of life, Sarva Mukta, really everything is so clear that you have left no room for seeking clarification. How much clarity you have in every step, every part of the discussion. Really, I have no words to appreciate you. Now that is over to Dr. Pragya Prakashini ma'am to carry on the interactive section. Dr. Pragya.
Yes. Well, my regards to Dr. Suryakant Maharana, whom I admire for the depth he has and the way he delivers his lectures. This present lecture is philosophically intriguing as his previous ones. You have beautifully blended the Indian and the Western perspectives of religion. It was fascinating. I thank the participants for some questions that they have raised. I'm going to get them addressed by our distinguished speaker one by one.
Sure.
Here I go on with the first question, which is from Dr. Kalyani Sarangi ma'am. She asks, during your lecture, you said that whatever is there is for the sake of us. So it would, if it is so, then it would be a myopic vision of religion. Rather, religion should be all encompassing. Your comments, please.
Okay. Thank you, Kalyani ma'am, for the wonderful question that you have raised. Okay. By saying that everything is made for us, I mean here that as a human being, my top priority is self-realization or God realization. Certainly, I love nature. Without nature, I cannot survive. I need to work for nature. So that unless and until I get a very good ambience, very good environment, I cannot seek religious welfare. But then, here the intention is not just to use nature, use in the different way, the way science and technology uses it. The meaning is not here. The entailment is that we are not supposed to use nature for our sake the way science and technology does. But then, taking the benefits of the natural platform, taking the benefits of this material world, which has been given again by the Supreme, we have to proceed. Why? Because when we entered into this world, we were alone. And when we move out from this world, we will be alone. The world was there before we came. It is now existing. And at the end of our life, when we move out from this world, this will continue to exist. Therefore, this is emphasized in order to, the emphasis here is to get advantages of the nature, the natural platform, so that we would not develop any kind of attachment toward this world in our journey towards the Supreme Self. The whole idea is to develop detachment from everything. That is the final call of the religion. Detachment can be had only and only if we develop this idea that one day we have to leave from this world. We have not taken birth here just to take and worship the nature. That is one of the part and parcel of it. We have to praise, we have to take care of nature, but then that's not top priority. Top priority is our self-development. Alongside, we can also do this kind of activities, no doubt about that. This is, as a humble student, my take at this moment, ma'am. Pragya, please.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Maharana. Then I go on with the second question, which is from Dr. Ratnakara Gajendra sir. He says every religion
My pranam to
has
him, yeah. My pranam to
every
Ratnakar sir. Yeah.
okay every
Yeah, please go ahead.
religion every religion has a concept of God. Can we conceive or religion without God? Radhakrishnan is trying to bridge the gap between East and West. Has he succeeded in his endeavor? Please clarify.
Of course, he has succeeded. He has said that, okay, there can be religion even without God. But there can hardly be any religion without admitting the existence of a self. If you are a believer in a self, religion exists. No problem. So he has bridged the gap between. Religion is possible with self, but religion is not possible without self or without God. This is the foundation of religion. Therefore, we study in Indian philosophy that not only the classical Indian philosophies from the Astika and Nastika side, bearing Charvaka, all are philosophies and religions at par excellence. Jainism is a world famous religion. Buddhism, no doubt about that. And all other, Vedantism, the living religion of this world, the living religion of the Hindus, sustaining from time immemorial, is there. It's a philosophy at par excellence. And religion, no doubt about that. This is the edifice of Hinduism, Vedanta, Mimamsa, religions. Yes, Pragya.
Okay, then the next question is from Dr. K.M. Narayan Rao, sir. He asks,
Namaskar, sir.
Is the religious life a life of soul realization or God realization? How does Dr. Radhakrishnan take this?
Both way. It could be self-realization if you are a believer of the self. It could be God realization if you are a believer in God. But since he is a Vedantin, he says that either you take up self-realization or God realization, both of them mean the same for me as a personal seeker. He says that it's my personal opinion, my personal observations about religion. And for me, self and God realization mean the same. Jiva Brahmi va naparaha, according to him. No distinction between the self and the supreme Brahman or God. Pragya.
Okay, actually, Dr. Maharana, I have a question. Time and
Please.
again, yes, time and again, you are saying that during your lecture, you are saying soul realization or God realization. Right now, also, you said that they are same. Has Dr. Radhakrishnan identified soul with God? He hasn't even identified God with the absolute. He says that God is the absolute in action. It is God, the creator.
Pragya, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I couldn't, because of some technical, hassles were there. I couldn't listen to you properly.
Okay.
Could you please repeat it again?
Okay. Let me repeat. Time and again, you were saying that soul realization or God realization. I just want right now. Also, you said that they are same. I just wanted to know: has Radhakrishnan identified soul with God? He hasn't even identified God with the absolute. He says that God is the absolute in action. It is God, the creator. Can you clarify this?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Actually, as I told you that, he tries to address the Western gathering, Western philosophers and Western intakers of religion as well. So he says that in India, normally God and self are taken at par as far as the Vedantic tradition is concerned, especially within the Advaitha framework.
Okay.
But then he says that if you do not identify soul with God, not an issue. Self-realization will lead to God realization. This is the view of almost all religions. So one leads, the self-realization leads towards the God realization. There is no doubt about that. And with reference to God and absolute,
Yes.
by absolute he means the formless, nameless, Nirakara, Nirguna, Nirvikalpa Brahman. And by God, he means the personal God or Saguna Brahman.
Okay.
He says, Saguna Brahman or God can be worshipped. Saguna Brahman is not one and the same with Nirguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman is the creation of Maya. Because of Maya, we find Saguna Brahman. Ultimately, we have to transcend this Saguna Brahman or God and find absolute. Therefore, the goal of human life is not Saguna Brahman, but the absolute, the Nirguna Nirakara Brahman.
Okay.
The way to this Nirguna Nirakara Brahma or the absolute, called by Radhakrishnan, is possible through worship of God, the personal God, Saguna Brahman or Ishvara. That is how it distinguishes.
Okay,
Of course,
thank
within my very small reading and limited reading of Radhakrishnan's philosophy, although he happens to be my great grandfather.
No, it was really
I
an
go down before him.
an elaborate answer it was. Then
Thank you.
Kalyani Sarangi ma'am again has asked whether it
Yes.
is detachment or attachment for all.
Sorry, I couldn't follow.
Whether
Detachment or attachment for all? In what sense?
in
The
your
goal for all.
answer, no, in your answer you said that one should practice the feeling of detachment from everything.
Yeah,
So
that's
she wants to know whether it is detachment or attachment for all.
Yeah. Radhakrishnan finally says, finally we have to be detached from this world. Because as far as our constitutional or original position is concerned, we are detached from this world. In between, we become attached to this world. And finally, we have to get ourselves detached from the world. Getting back or reverting back to our earlier position. Therefore, the goal is detachment, but again through attachment. This is what we can understand. Attachment is a reality. Nobody can get rid of that. We are attached to everything. But then to get rid of this attachment is not that easy. That is why the whole edifice of this religion, whole idea of religion, attachment is not the goal. It is a sincere or honest following of a religion which gradually makes us away from attachment and lead us towards detachment. That is my intent.
Okay.
As of now.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I don't find any more question in the chat box.
Okay.
Over to Kailash Maharana, sir.
It's
please.
time to offer the gratitude to Dr. Maharana and all others who were connected to our program. Okay.
No
Okay,
need, actually, it's my duty, and you have given an opportunity to share my very harsh ideas rather, or incomplete ideas, half-assed ideas that which I communicated to you. So I am grateful to you that you listen to all these things with passions. So therefore, no thanks are required for me. Yeah, please.
No, actually, really, we the members of Philosophy family and all the participants offer you a hearty gratitude. The way you have presented your talk and clarified all our doubts. Thanks so much, Dr. Maharana. Thanks so much, Dr. Tapati Chakraborty, for making this evening very meaningful. Okay, thanks so much. Happy gratitude to Pragya.
Please keep coming and enlightening us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure that at least
Appreciate your
there are some
humility.
people.
Appreciate it.
There are some people, who like to listen to such a poor fellow. Okay, not an issue. Yeah,
It's
but
your
then
humility.
at the end,
Thank you.
yeah, I wish to convey my great and hearty regards to Tapati ma'am. Tapati ma'am, namaskar. Bhalo achen? Yeah. Hope she recognizes me. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Over to Devasis. Okay, over to Devasis.
Hello, yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Maharana, sir. Thank you.
Devasis sir, namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you, Tapati ma'am. Thank you for your enlightening lectures, and thanks to our coordinator, Kailash sir, Pragya ma'am, for moderating the session, and to all the audience who have listened carefully and raised their question. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good night. Very good night to all of you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pragya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.